I really appreciate your interest, and I hope to give you some basic insights on how we do video clustering, how we use image features to put together a system where we can actually put it to practical use. I've been into the industry for a very long time now, so I have a lot of experience based on computer vision, NLP, and a lot of other stuff apart from machine learning. So my contribution for the community is that I'm going to be delivering more and more lectures on more like the classical stuff, if you may. So I'm more interested in handing over that knowledge to the people, and I hope that it sparks some interest for the future of most of you youngsters. And that's how I think of delivering content to people out there. So let's begin, guys. And so this is video clustering using image descriptors. So the basic premise is that how we can use features to do some video clustering. I mean, what we're going to do is actually going to push forward processing a video, where we would like to basically divide the video into different segments. Now, you may have seen the same things on video websites, like video streaming website like YouTube, where you actually see, like some time ago, they would basically put these timeline chunks in there. So what happens is that there are many ways of approaching this, and one of this practical usage of clustering videos, or let's say breaking into part, is like it's used in shot detection. Shot detection means that there is this video where you are basically the camera is moving, showing up some part of video. Like for example, the camera is showing a scene where somebody is speaking in a conference room, right? And the camera moves around, and then it shows you, let's say, the audience itself, right? It turns around and shows the audience. First it shows the speaker, then it shows the audience. The transition between showing the speaker and the audiences, so that's part of shot detection. One shot is the speaker, the other shot is the audience. How do you basically process that video, where you segment that video between these two shots? That's an actual practical industrial problem. Nowadays, machine learning and deep learning has solved a lot of those things, but a few things are very simple to do. You don't need to go so deep into deep learning to solve such things. So one of the practical use cases is, you can actually do this using very simple things as well. So the agenda is what I spoke about the purpose. Then we are going to look into the image features, not very deep, but I'll tell you what we're actually looking at. And then there's a code demo as well. So how do we do all of this? We process a video using OpenCV. Obviously, there is a sample video that we're going to process. Then we are going to extract features. There are two different features that we're going to extract. We are going to cluster those features using k-means. We're going to visualize the steps, and we're going to create a GIF animation. If you guys remember some time ago, I don't know if it's still there, YouTube, when you hover your mouse over YouTube videos, you could see that there would be a GIF animation running. How do you think that was done? I think most likely, this is my educated guess, that they were using some sort of clustering mechanism where they would pick up these individual keyframes to produce a GIF, which eventually leads to a video highlight. So you can assume that this can also be used in that sense. And a little touch to coding practices, because I've been a software engineer as well throughout my career, so I also emphasize a lot on coding practices. It's not like that you're going to just put together a lot of Jupyter notebooks and everything goes fine. I don't usually use Jupyter notebooks, and I don't actually like using Jupyter notebooks. I mean, that's my personal bias. No disrespect to all of you guys who use Jupyter notebooks. Image features. So what would be an image feature? Like, image features are a way to describe, right, a content within an image. So why do we need to describe it? I mean, the purpose is that you need to make a computer understand what it's looking at. So this is a little different from image processing itself, so people tend to confuse it. So just on a side note, image processing is a little different than computer vision. Computer vision is solely a field where you're trying to make a computer understand what is inside of image, what it's looking at, right? So there are many ways of doing this. There are a lot of features that we can use. Namely, there are, I categorize for now, for this lecture, I'm going to categorize on two features. One is holistic features, the others are local features, global and local features. What's the difference? A global feature is where you look at the complete image, in a sense, right? And you extract the features from the complete image. Like if you have a 256 by 256 image, you, in a sense, filter the whole image in the 256 by 256 dimensions and then extract consistent features. When I say consistent feature, it means for every 256 by 256 image, the extracted feature set is going to be consistent, means there are the dimension of the output feature vector is going to be the same. It's not going to change. So that sense, that's a holistic feature, while local features like SIFT, SURF, and OR and REEF, and all of these uh, are local features where they vary based on the images. And remember, when we talk about image features, there are two things we generally look at. One are the edges, the other the gradients or the orientations. These are the two most important things when we look at image features. Although we look at frequency as well, but not in this lecture. We're not talking about that. So here we're going to specifically talk a little about local binary pattern features and the HOG features. I chose these two because they were fast and they have good visualizations. And as an example, they are nice to use because the visualizations themselves are very important. So in that sense, I've used LBP and HOG features. So just to give you an example how a descriptor would look like. So on the top row, you can see a holistic image feature in a sense. For example, LBP, JIS, and HOG, these features are basically in the top row. In that sense, you divide the image into different parts, right? Into blocks of images, into blocks of sub windows, or let's say cells, or whatever you may like to call it. And then you apply a set of transformations. So for each block, you would create a feature, right? And then you concatenate all of that. That becomes your final global feature, right? So that becomes the final output. As I said, the features will always be consistent in their size. So no matter what you do, the feature collection will always be of the same size. So this gives you a consistent output. While down on the lower figures, you can see SIFT features, and on the right side there is this visualization of the feature where it's calculating a SIFT feature, right? So SIFT itself is basically, it's going to look at different variations of the texture, which means it's going to look at a block of image. You can see the blue block there with the green circle. It's going to look in its surrounding in that block and try to figure out what's the maximal response. The maximum response is nothing more than average of a gradient, okay? The average of the gradient. So that's a maximal response of it. So as you can see, this is a brain scan image on the left side. You can see there are many SIFT features being displayed there, being visualized there. So for every image that is you're going to look at like this, there are going to be many SIFT features. You can make an analogy. I hope you understand this. So the SIFT features are going to vary in the number of outputs that we're going to get, right? In global features, the output is fixed. In SIFT localized features, these vectors, these features generally tend to vary. Now, where do we use such SIFT features? When you are trying to do image matching, you can use SIFT features because the image matching is a difficult problem where you're trying to match different parts of image to if there are two different images. One is, like, say, has some sort of transformation, like there's a perspective transformation between one of them, and you're trying to match these two images. What do you use? You don't use global features in that term. You use features like SIFT and SURF, which will give you an approximation of the number of image areas that are matched. It's a very long conversation, so I won't go too deep into that. So I'll leave it right there. So local binary patterns. So how do we calculate this? Very quickly. So local binary pattern. What you do is you use a 3x3 neighborhood, right? And you're going to run this, let's say, filter or kernel over an image, and you're going to threshold it. The threshold is totally up to you. What you do is that you pick the pixel values on the filter, right? And then you threshold it. Let's say in this image we have a threshold of 50. What's 50? It's basically a grayscale of 0 to 255, right? So the grayscale of 0 to 255 is your input image, gray image, right? over which you run this 3 by 3 neighborhood filter. And what you do is you threshold it, and then as you can see, any pixel that's greater than 50 is set to 1. Everything else is set to 0. This way you create your local binary feature, and then you sum it up based on what powers 2 raised to the power 0, 2 raised to the power 1, 2 raised to the power 2, and etc. That gives you one feature, right? That gives you one output from 3 by 3 pixel kernel. So you accumulate all of these in numbers, and then you create your local binary pattern feature. This is a very simple feature. If you want to go a little more deep into it, I have all the resources listed out in the final section. You can have a look at it. So this is how you're going to create a local binary pattern. Like for one 3 by 3 pixel, one 3 by 3 window, you have an output of a single number. So the LBP for this example is 25. You can calculate it. I think there's a mistake here. It should be 23, I guess. Yeah, it should be 23. Is it? No, because there are two different. These were taken from two different sources, so that's why the output is a little different. So this becomes your local binary pattern feature. This is one of the features that we're going to use. And this is very simple. You can have a look at the source code as well. So I'll show you the source code as well. And the other is HOG features, the histogram of oriented gradients. As you can see, there's a man standing here. This feature is generally used for, let's say, object detection. For example, if you're going to find, if you want to find in a video sequence or image, if there's somebody standing, if there's an object where there's a person standing, you can use this feature to detect basically if somebody's standing in that image. Like as you can see, this visualization of HOG features can show that the histogram of oriented gradients, as they can be seen, it somehow depicts the fact that there is somebody standing. There's an object that's actually standing. So what we do is in this one is that we divide the image into blocks, different blocks, right? The whole image is divided into blocks, and over those blocks we basically use like a convolutional transformation. We use convolutions to basically slide over it, like we use sliding windows, calculate the magnitude and the gradient, and then we assign that particular block an orientation or a gradient value. So what you're seeing are actually the magnitude, the average of orientation and gradients right there. So as you can see, like in the middle of the image, you can see the variations. On the top and the bottom of the image, you don't see that much variation. But while in the middle where the person is standing, you can see the variation. So that's how basically you can detect that if there is an object of interest in there. So there are many implementations out there. All these things are linked here. There is Scikit also has its implementation. There is a hands-on pure Python code as well. I've put the link there as well. So you can have a look at these things. If you want to actually understand how it's visualized in a sense, we can also I can also show you where it actually works. So, but I'll get that to the end in the end. So video clustering. This is a part of unsupervised machine learning. There are two parts to it. One is the k-means clustering. The other is the reduction of the features. There's a specific reason why I have reduced the features. Because we're going to visualize them, because if it's an n-dimensional vector, you cannot view n-dimensional vector on a computer screen, right? You need 2D dimensions. So that's where we actually reduce the features, and you use PCA for that. So the steps are: read the video, okay? Process frame by frame, extract the 1D array. This is your histogram actually. We normalize the features. We accumulate for k, and we find the optimal k. Generally, you don't see that people talking about finding optimal k. It's always an elbow test, but this can also be automated. I'll show you the piece of code where it's actually done. We create the clusters, and using these clusters, we pick independent frames from it, like one frame from each cluster to create our animated GIF, to create the highlight. And also I'll show you the visualization steps for each of all of it. Just to give you a quick brief overview, this is one of the outputs, some of the outputs that you can see. On the left side are the clusters and the cluster assignments. On the right side is the number of cluster, which we call the elbow test as well. This is the number of optimum Ks that we need to use in k-means clustering. This is a little different from the general implementation. I've done it in a little different way. It's just a simple multiplication, just to make sure that there are there's a lot of information that needs to be extracted. So I have multiplied the optimum number of gates with 2. I guess that's what I did, but we'll see that in the code. So right now, let me jump into the code. Just 1 second, guys. So on Windows, so what as I said, just 1 second, guys. I don't use Jupyter notebooks. Rather, I use Spider. I've been using Spider for well over 12 years, I guess. And I like this because this IDE is pretty powerful. It gives you a lot of visualization tools. And I like the watch mechanism as well. So I can look at especially when it comes to pandas data frames, this tool gives you a lot of help. So it's very easy to use. Okay, guys, so let's go into the code itself. So here is the code. There are a few things I would like to also explain, that we basically use this video. This is the video that we are actually going to use. So before we jump into the video itself, now let me show you let me play the video for you for just 1 second, few seconds. So this is the video. I took it from the internet. There's a link for it already available. You can share it. So very quickly, right? So this is the video that we're going to use. Having said that, we read the video and we try to process it frame by frame. So we have 2 classes here, basically. One is the LBP feature, the other is HOG, Histogram of Oriented Gradients, and LBP features. Specifically, these 2 things are in one class, one features.py file, and I have implemented using some basic Python code. I have also tried to use some type hints for it, because I think when you write code, you need to do some type hinting as well. It gives you a little more clear message at what sort of information is being passed on between 2 classes. For example, input image, this has to be an ND array. Otherwise, if you just put it like this, it doesn't really make sense apart from the name itself, right? But an input image can be a list of numbers and then like that. But that's what I don't want to confuse with. So this is one of the class. This is the base class that implements a compute method, right? It's an abstract method which needs to be implemented in all the classes that are going to inherit from it. So this is the HOG class. This is the LBP feature class, and this is VGG16. Anybody of you who wants to implement a deep learning feature extraction needs to implement, for example, if you want to implement the VGG16 feature extraction, you can do it here. You can just plug in the code that actually extracts the feature and you should be good to go. That's all you need to do. So the HOG feature is basically the class that we're going to extract some of the feature from the image. There are a few, few parameters that we need to look at. So this is the input size, because you can have a control. You can actually tell the HOG descriptor if it's going to look at a local part or a full part of the image, if it's going to look fully at the image or a sub part of the image, which you can control from this using this variable. And then it's basically, again, it's a sliding window operation. You tell it the window size, then you also tell it how many strides you're going to use it. I'm very sure you know what a block stride means. So you're going to basically have a sliding window operation with overlapping blocks of windows. Then also you have this bins. So this bins is basically number of orientation gradients that you're going to calculate. I think it's 180 divided by 9. If I'm correct. Yeah. So you will have 20 outputs, 20 gradient outputs, 20 angles from each cell, from each sliding window operation. This is what you should be able to get, and that's what gets accumulated at the end as a feature vector, right? So put it simple, once we calculate the features, we create a histogram, and this is what we're going to return. So because we're going to do it in 1D, everything has to be in 1D. The range should be, we have 256 bins. This is the output dimension I have said. You can change. This is totally up to you. No fixed rules here. And because the range is 0 and 1, which eventually means that the output from this feature that's computed is in the range of 0 and 1. So that's what I've done here. If the range is different, you can, let's say if the range is from -1 to 1, you don't necessarily need to use this, but this is just for sake of clarity that the output is in the range of 0 to 1, and that's what I'm going to actually accumulate in my histogram. So this is what it does. Exactly the same code for LBP as well, but with a difference of normalization. So because LBP outputs in the range of, I think, 0 to 255, we need to normalize it between 0 and 1. So I guess this is a normalize. This we should normalize it between 0 and 1, and then eventually it's going to create the bins for 256 grayscale values, if that makes sense. So that's the only subtle difference here. And there are a lot of other things that I put into the code as well, and you may have a look at it. I have some, I've also put some image utilities. You can also have array utilities here as well. You can go through the code and look at how those things work, but those are the lengthy details. So just for your information, I've put some comments here, which you can read through and make sense out of them. So all of this code is basically going to produce an output at the end called movie.gif, and we should be able to run this code here as well. So let's try this with LBP feature. So there's a class called video reader. Let me go to, this is an important class. So here we are going to basically get the video frame by frame, and we're going to process it, right? So I created a class so that so the code is also a little clean when you're using it. Instead of dumping everything into one file, I've divided it into different parts, and you should be able to see it. So the details are very a lot of length, so I won't want to bore you with a lot of details. So just this one quick information here is that because of the frame rate per second, we are going to process 30 seconds of video initially. So let's run this. So we should be able to run about 700 frames for the 30 seconds that we have. And we should be able to get some plots here. It should be a video visible here. Okay, so here is the plot. And as you can see, this is an output one of the feature vectors, right? So this is what it's been output here. And this is the output from the k-means clustering elbow test. This is the sum of squared errors. So this line represents the optimal number of clusters that I am going to use. So in this case, it's 6, right? So there are 6 clusters here. These are color coded. If they are not visible, just hold on. Let me undock this. So you can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are 6 clusters. Each cluster is color coded, so you can have an idea what's the number of clusters that we're using. But the point is, what is inside these clusters? We need to have a look at them, right? So to have an idea, let's say we pick cluster number, cluster number 5, let's say the yellow one, right? Let's see what's inside cluster number 5. Go here, we have a look here, and you can see these images, most of these images are the same. You can see here, if you have a look, these are the same. It makes sense, right? They are the same images because from the video sequence, these images don't have that much of a difference. Although you can see there are a few overlaps here, but this is expected, right? Because there are a lot of things that go into it. You may need to have a different feature. You need to have a different k-means algorithm running. You may use agglomerative clustering or a different, let's say, feature reduction technique to overcome these problems. Nevertheless, the point is that, as you can see, this cluster has images that are pretty much the same. So let's have a look at another cluster. So cluster number 4. You can see somehow these are also similar. But again, there is overlap. There are always going to be overlap, right? Because the clusters are built in a way that you can see there is a overlap between these clusters. So that's why we see this mix of frames here. And let's say cluster number 0. What do we have in cluster number 0? Yeah, again. So some of the images are pretty clean. Some of them are still mixed up. But nevertheless, let's see if we have something better in terms of HOG features. Let's remove this, close this, and see if this the same thing repeats for HOG. Just to show you that I resized the input video because I need to process it fast. There is no point in processing the whole giant image, because you can reduce the image size and process it and still get good results. Again, we are looking at it in a holistic manner. That's why the resizing would still be valid. If you were looking at it in subparts of it, maybe the resizing would have not been that good. Like if you're looking at fine-grained details of the image, then this resizing may cause problems for us. Okay, having said that, that's done. Let's see what we have. Plots. So this is a HOG feature, and this says the number of clusters is 3. The other one said 6. This is 3, but nevertheless, you can see HOG feature didn't do that well as far as I can understand just by looking at it, because there should be at least 4 or 5 clusters. But nevertheless, let's have a look. See, 3 clusters. You see, it didn't work that well. It created lesser clusters, and there's a more overlap of image features. Anyways, so the final output that we get from this operation is, as we have a video. Let's see if it created a video highlight for us. Yeah, sort of. Because of its 3 clusters, so it has only 3 frames. So that it did create a video highlight for us. But let's look if we have the. Let's run this one so that we get some better idea till it processes it. So let me get you through the rest of the code. Prepare data for clustering. We use 2 components so we can visualize the clusters. As I said, because it's a 2-dimensional space, we need to reduce the dimensions, right? So here, once we have reduced the dimensions, we actually do the k-means clustering on the reduced dimensions. So one of you may have asked, why didn't we use the 256 full length vector vector? We can use that. Maybe the results will be good, but at the end, to visualize it, we still have to do PCA, right? So that can be done. That's a still valid operation. Once we do the visualization and all of that stuff, this is where we find the optimal K, right? Find need, this algorithm. This gives you the optimal number of clusters that we need to use. Once we have the optimal clusters, then we simply do a clustering, compute the clusters, label them, and then assign those labels to the video frames one by one. And at the end, here, what we do is we actually create the GIF itself. Because what we're trying to do here is we're trying to pick 1 frame per image. So like let's use some features to create animated GIFs. So what we have is we drop the duplicates on the label. So we have 1 label, which means there's going to be 1 frame for each label. And based on that number of frames, we're going to create the final output GIF. So let's see how did we create a different one. Yeah, you can see the highlights are more comprehensive, like 5 or 6 frames, I guess, if I'm not wrong. So if you want to have a look at the frames, let's say GIF. One way of doing GIF. What? Okay, it's frames. See, and if you want to have a look at the variable explorer, as I said, we can use this as well. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames, as we said, right? So this is the frame, this is the path, this is the image number or the frame number that we use. The frame number 471, 72, this, blah, blah, blah. And we eventually ended up creating the GIF for us. So now if you go back and look at the I look at the whole code itself. So I've divided into different classes, and this should basically help you understand that how we can use basic, image descriptors to process a video and create video highlights out of it. So using this, you can also basically segment the video itself. What does that mean? That means that you can break the video into parts, right? And then, basically set it aside for maybe some of your training and all of that stuff. So this concludes the talk itself on the code, on the presentation, and I'll stop sharing my screen if anybody has any questions. That's what it is. And if you want the source code and all of that stuff, I'll put it in the link and you can have a look at it. Any questions? Go ahead. Yes. Samira Begum, yes.
Excuse me.
No, that was an acknowledgement, Wahid.
Oh, sorry.
I don't.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
The code, is it available on GitHub?
Code is available on GitHub. Yes, absolutely. It is available. I'm just going to give you the link now. Just going to put it on chats.
Thank you.
So here is the video link for the code itself. And for the presentation is also there. I'll put it here. I hope Isham doesn't mind because I put the presentation here as well. So the presentation is here. The recording to the video link would be available obviously after Isham has put it up. So it's going to be part of the link itself. So do you guys have any questions? No? None at all? Come on, guys. There must be some questions.
Hey brother, thank you. First of all, I have one question.
Yeah.
That we are doing clustering using this CV and all those algorithm, but can we like have a LLM as in the pipeline as well to increase the efficiency and something like that?
Efficiency in terms of what? In terms of clustering, in terms of, I mean, I don't
Yes.
understand. Where would you plug it in? Like, you mean a multimodal one?
Yes, I mean the videos can be have summarized form that what kind of content is there. I mean maybe there would be a 5 different video and we can cluster and give some form of meta keywords attached to that video using this LLMs.
Well, you can do a lot of things with LLMs, multimodal LLMs. You can definitely do clustering. I haven't tested it out, but you can definitely do that. I guess that's one good idea for actually working. You upload a video and ask it to cluster it or break it into segments, right, based on visual similarity. But the purpose here is that how would you do a thing without, the power of LLMs, right? But at every instance, if you don't have an LLM, or what's your workaround? That's the basic purpose of this of this talk. I agree with you. LLMs can do a lot of things, but you have to have the understanding of how are you going to upload the whole sequence of video. That's the first thing. It's going to upload it to you. Are you going to tell it to segment based on what? Based on what? Visual information? Because we're using visual information, right? Are you going to prompt
Yes.
it in that sense? And maybe it's a good idea. Maybe somebody can try it out. I don't know. I haven't tried it, but you can try it out. And then you can ask it to send you the segments of video back or the keyframes back. In this case, we have a lot of keyframes, right? We use single keyframes to do that.
Yes, yes, yeah. I mean, keyframing the whole video is a good idea. Like, people, instead of watching whole video, they can just point to that fragment only. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's correct. And with the talks, let me also give you the links to some of the other things that I actually shared with you, which are going to be very useful for you guys. So if you want to have a understanding on how the algorithms themselves work, there are a few good resources actually. There is Python code, yeah. So you have a Python code for this. Let me put them here in the links for you. One is this, the other is. So just an overview. So just to show you how these things work, let me just share my screen one more time before we move ahead. Just want to show you how this algorithm actually works. So Isham, allow me to share my screen. Here it is. Share. Okay, share. Tell me when the screen is visible, guys. Is it visible? Yeah.
Yes, visible.
Yeah. So this is how a histogram of oriented gradient features is going to calculate. This guy has a good article on it, right? So as I said, the divide the image. He says for the parameters that are used for HOG, divide the image into L cells of the same size, group the gradient, okay, group the cells, normalize the cell histogram. So this is what happens actually in HOG. When I said sliding windows, this is what he actually means. So for every block of window, we calculate a feature where we are averaging the magnitude and the gradient. So combined both, we have the final output. So it slides over the window, over the whole image itself. So you can also tell with the window size, the code I showed you, the win size, right? So you can tell it what part of the image you're going to use, or if you're going to use the whole window itself. Using this analogy, you can understand how sliding window operations actually work. So, and in this code here, I've also used the same thing almost. So you see the window size, 64 by 128, right? This is what he's actually, this is the image size itself. You can use a cropped version of it if you change these parameters and the cell size and all of this. Then this is basically based on the image itself. So at the end, you have an output of a HOG descriptor, which is basically a bunch of numbers and which you can actually use later on. So HOG descriptors can be visualized in two ways, either as a histogram or as an image itself. So these are the outputs that you can visualize from a HOG grayscale image. Where it's going to show you the orientations of the edges. So remember, guys, whenever we speak of features, image features, it's mostly related to gradients or the magnitude of the gradients, which means angle, right? So these are the texture features that we actually use. So down in your convolutional neural networks, that's what we are actually extracting, right? We're extracting edges most of the time. I don't know about the magnitude, but edges I'm 100% sure. So just give you one more idea of a gradient. So this is one of the histogram where it's going to, it takes, you can see the gradients are in a particular direction, right? And you can see these lines, you can see these red lines pointing upwards and downwards. This means this is the magnitude here, or the angle should be here at 90 degrees. And you can see here, this one, this tall bar, this is at 90 degree. So this means this piece of image has a gradient of 90 degrees. So the information here is aligned at 90 degrees. This is what we actually calculate, and this is how we build our features. Likewise, on the other side, you can see this is for the corner of the car, and so on and so forth. You can see most of the feature here. These are diagonals, right? These are around the 45-degree angle. So it's like a 30, 40, 50, because you're going to have a histogram. So we're going to have a lot of values here spread out. So don't think that this is why shouldn't it's not only 45 or 50 degrees, because it's a spread of information. The gradients are varying. So that's why you have a histogram like this. So this is how basically the features are basically calculated. I'm going to stop my sharing. Okay, so anything else, guys? No questions? Okay, Isham, I guess there are no more questions. We want to we still continue?
Thank you very much for the session.
Mhm,
Wonderful session.
mhm. Thank you,
I'll
guys.
again,
Okay, guys.
rewatch this session.
Sorry, I have a question, but I couldn't find the microphone button. I'm sorry if it is not too
No
late.
problem.
Um, what's your opinion of the model that was released by Meta, the segment anything model, SAM? Have you
Mhm.
used it? I mean, I've only heard of it, but I've never been able to use it.
I mean, it's a pretty open-ended question. What do you mean by my
I
opinion? I
mean,
mean,
because that seems like something that tries to be a general purpose model because it's called segment anything. So from the name, it
mhm,
means that I can segment, I don't know, the picture of a room from
mhm.
a picture of cats, from a picture of, I don't know, people. But and if that was the case, it would make it very powerful. But I've never used it, so I don't know. I was wondering if you had the chance to use it.
I didn't use it, but when these such models come out, okay, but first of all, thank you for the question. I mean, though it's out of context, but I'm still going to answer it because it's an important question. People need to understand why these models, these tall claims need to be actually verified. Look, a segment anything model, SAM model, right? If I were to use it, for example, if somebody put this question to me and I actually had to validate this thing, what I would do thing is that I would look at a specific problem set. What does this mean? Sam has been trained of I don't know, a trillion, a million, a billion images. What sort of images? That's not something that we're going to actually be able to figure out, right? We don't have the training data set in that sense. What I would do is, if I would narrow down that to a problem of my own, I would say, for example, if I would say, does this model perform good on MRI images? Is it a possibility? What I would do is that I would go in a direction where I would try to figure out where I'm going to put it to test for images that it has never been trained on, right? I would put it into the wild where it has never seen a data set it was never trained or evaluated on. And
I
having
see.
said that, now I just remember, I don't remember the exact link to the research paper where somebody actually tested this on MRI brain images, and it basically failed in a very bad way. Failed in a very bad way. So SAM is good in the sense that if you're going to give it images within its domain of information, outside you have to test it, evaluate it, and then make a conclusion. That's my answer for that, Toliko. Does that answer
Yes,
your question?
yes, thank you.
Okay, guys, thanks very much. If there is no more question, I guess that concludes the session. I've shared you the link to the presentation and the source code. Hope you can have a go at it. Maybe somebody can add the deep learning part to it. I've left the code with an empty implementation. If you do implement it, please do share it with us, or maybe we can push it to the code rep. Probably request that from you guys. I guess that's it, Isham, right? No more further questions, I guess.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
So
Thank
if
you very much,
anyone
guys.
has ideas, so you guys can
Mhm.
also come up with the workshops, the ones who participated today.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, that would be good if somebody can do that. Yeah, right. Nice.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate your time. Have a great Sunday and good day
Thank you,
to
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.